Hi, my name is Maggie MacAlpine, and I'm the Director of Cybersecurity Partnerships and Evangelism here at Seceon. This month, we're doing a video series for Cyber Awareness Month, and with me today is Josh Skeens. Would you like to introduce yourself, Josh?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Maggie, for having me today. It's a pleasure to always be with the Seceon team. But I'm Josh Skeens, CEO of Logically. We're a national MSP and MSSP, and I've been lucky enough, or unlucky enough, I guess, depending on what day of the week, to have been in the cybersecurity space for over 20 years now.
Yeah, for myself, I've only been 14 years or so, so you're you're more senior, and I'm actually really excited for the topic we wanted to discuss today. You mentioned that you were going to be sharing with us some of the cybercrime statistics that are out there. We wanted to just get into the cyber threat landscape for this issue, for this edition of our Cyber Awareness Month series. So without further ado, maybe we could just dive right in. If you could maybe tell me, like, first of all, tell me a little bit about the landscape, and then maybe we can start diving into some of these kind of scary statistics you mentioned.
Absolutely. I'm a big data guy, so I always like digging into the data to see what's going on, doing trending analysis. But also, I feel like when you look at the data, it starts to tell a story and paint a picture. And in today's cyber security landscape, is that unfortunately, many people still believe they're not a threat and that it's something that they just hear and see in the news, but it's only for large companies or they'll never really be impacted. And that's just not the case. And I like to do some educational awareness around that, several times a year and go to our customers and even people that aren't our customers and just try to make them aware of the serious nature of, global cybercrime. It's huge. It impacts businesses every single day, every minute to the second. There's numbers, and I can talk about that a little bit, but every business is a target, and a lot of times it's the small businesses that are the target. And it depends on who you look at, what classifies a small business, but 99% of all businesses in the United States are considered an SMB. So most likely you're working for or working with, or maybe have even be blessed enough to own an SMB. And that means that you're one of the most high priority targets for these cyber actors out there.
I remember first hearing, about for example, the Russian hacker army when I first got into the space. And I really appreciate your point about how a lot of small and medium businesses don't think that they're a target. But the data absolutely doesn't bear out there. While I'm sure there's still the big targets out there, we are seeing increasingly, I believe, statistics supporting that they're going mostly more and more after smaller and medium businesses as everyone becomes, more and more interconnected and more connected online. And that's been going on for, like, I want to say at least a decade.
Yeah, exactly. And, depending on, again, who you look at, there's so much analysis out there, but a lot of times they'll say 80+% of the cyber crimes that happen out there impact the SMB. People continue to believe like they're not a threat because they look at their business. Let's just say, just an example, I'm a local landscape company, right? Most people would think, like, why would anybody target me? Well, they'll target you because, number one, you're an easy target. Most likely you don't have very good security, but you have so much personal information from these people that they can impact, from credit card information to, street and home address to maybe social security number, depending on your employees. You're taking that data in and where you're storing it. You still have a plethora of information that is worth a lot of money to them, to leverage in such things as, different types of cybercrime. So it really doesn't matter how big or small you are. The only difference is that if you're a much larger company, it's likely to be in the news, it's likely to be disclosed, and they're likely to get you for a lot more money. But the percentages of chances of you getting hit really don't change whether you're a large or small company.
Absolutely. Like the very fact that you don't expect to be hit is sort of making you a lower hanging fruit. And even worse, a lot of these larger companies have the resources to bounce back from even the worst sorts of breaches. But small and medium, SMBs can be absolutely driven under by a few days of outage or a particularly bad, ransom for attack, for example.
Yep, for sure. I mean, that statistic really hasn't changed. And that
Mhm.
statistic states that of SMBs, over 60% of businesses that get hit by a ransomware attack will go out of business within 6 months after getting hit by ransomware. So,
Yeah, that,
like you just said, like if you're a large company, you probably have the capital to come back from it. If you're a small business, you most likely do not have the capital to come back from it.
Yeah, that's such a sobering statistic. And I remember there was another that said, just how high these numbers are. Like 80% get hit again if they pay the ransom once. It just once you end up, it's really sort of like a shear the sheep, don't kill it situation. They'll keep coming back to these companies unless the company dies, which it sounds, is much more of a threat for the smaller businesses.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. I mean, and the cyber damages just continue to add up. And, I think one of the most glaring ones is in 2024 right now, we're averaging that cyber damages are $302,000 a second in 2024. So think about that. In 2024, we're averaging that we're bleeding over $300,000 a second because of global cybercrime. That's not just in the U.S., that's across the whole world, but still, I mean, that's a sobering number to know that we're bleeding that much money due to cyber damages.
Yeah, I almost feel like there's just like no other parallel. But like, so just to move, because we could talk about these statistics forever, and I think it'll just keep getting darker. We have a bad reputation in cybersecurity for just always having terrible news. But what can people do about it? I mean, it's 2024. There whenever I talk about cybersecurity and people ask me what they can do, I always have to ask them, do you mean as an individual? Do you mean as like an enterprise? And we talk about password hygiene and NIST standards. But what are your thoughts about this change, around, password complexity and the things people can do to protect themselves?
Yeah, I mean it's hard to believe that it is 2024, getting ready to be 2025, and we're still so attached to passwords. I mean, I feel like we've been hearing for a decade now that passwords were going to go away, and we've made some really good gains, but still, I mean, everything is controlled by a password for the most part. And it's good to see that NIST has changed some of their standards, meaning that if you go out there and read their most recent guidelines, in short, I mean, there's many things that they say, but it's not so much about complexity, because if you ask people to use special characters all the time, make them really, really long and complicated and hard to remember, it actually opens you up more to issues like password reuse, people writing passwords down on sticky notes, different things like that. So now they're basically telling you, hey, we don't care so much about you leveraging special characters, it is password length. You're trying to use like sentence-based phrases for your passwords that are easy to remember, so then you don't reuse those passwords again and again. You don't have to write them down. I mean, the average end user today has over 100 passwords that we have to remember. Nobody remembers all those passwords. Everybody reuses those passwords, and the majority of people make them super simple to remember. So it's great to see NIST change some of their guidelines and help us with password hygiene. And people just need to do their best. I always tell people from a best practice standpoint, make sure that you're using a password keeper, some type of password database, whether that's KeePass, LastPass. Not here to sponsor anybody here, but there's several good ones that are out there, and we can't remember 100 passwords. We obviously want to use password rotation and good password hygiene. So just always leverage some type of platform to help you do that.
Yeah, I think, so much of that, the stuff we grew up hearing about passwords feels like it was from a day where you might have two or three passwords, maybe your banking, maybe your email, and it's just proliferated so much beyond that. It's impossible to keep up with, the sheer number you'd be asked to remember. And to your point, yeah, I've been thinking about this for a while, about how much, people either give up and they fall into worse strategies, or they, just again, write it down somewhere. It's really sort of impossible to ask a human to keep up and to remember all of these things without some level of repetition. So I'm really glad NIST put out these standards, and it's also kind of incumbent upon us as an industry to also make it easier for people. I've seen a lot more companies, for example, like sending it to you to your email and things like that. But there's a lot of thought going into this, but it's definitely an ongoing issue, I suppose. Just the basic password one. So with that, but I love how actionable your point is there. So to go back a little bit into to trends, for example, um, yeah, at the end of the day, there's no silver bullet for cybersecurity. So actually, just to keep us on this topic for a second of these best practices, but beyond just individuals and their passwords, and obviously businesses are using passwords too. What should these businesses and practitioners be doing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's lots of best practices, and you and I got a chance to catch up the other day, and I
Yeah.
was joking around that like best practices, I feel like for like the last 5 to 10 years, I talk a lot about the same best practices, and then you go back and look, and it's the same best practices that you've been talking about with some tweaks here or there, right? I say that in jest a little bit, but much of like the standard framework, foundational best practices are still out there, and if you would put those things to really good use, you're considering yourself probably 90, 95% secure at that point in time, if not higher. One of the things that I like to tell businesses that really is one of the things they don't think about and should be one of the first things they think about is data identification. And what I mean by that is most businesses don't even know what data they should be trying to secure and where that data exists. So then they're just left trying to boil the ocean. And that's when they typically will get into spend issues. So, and what I mean by that, to dive a little bit deeper, is that specifically like small businesses, medium-sized businesses, they might then say, I don't have the budget to go do all of these security things. But the reason being is that they're trying to apply cybersecurity across every single aspect of their business, and you can't do all of it everywhere. So if you did have really good data identification practices where you knew where your PII data was, you knew where your intellectual property resided, you knew what was confidential and couldn't be leaked or impacted by a threat actor, that would really narrow the scope of how tight that type of security needed to be, kind of like a zero trust security architecture around that data, rather than trying to do it for the whole business. So that's one thing that I really like to call out for businesses to make sure they're doing, specifically if they feel like they have cost constraints when it comes to cybersecurity. But then, looking at passwords, we really need to be leveraging MFA across the board. I mean, some practices that, you see out there and statistics will state that like less than 24% of businesses are running MFA today, which is just mind blowing to me, considering like every site you sign up for almost mandates you have it or requests that you turn it on. So to think that businesses really aren't leveraging multi-factor authentication when they should be, like we really need to make sure that we're leveraging that. And to touch on that, I mean, one of the reasons for that is that most issues with passwords aren't because somebody created a weak password, right? And I think NIST is changing the practice based off of some of that data. What really happens is somebody gets breached that had a password database. I mean, since 2016, 2018, over 24 billion passwords have been exposed on the internet. So it's not that somebody guessed your password. It's that somebody stole your password or got it from a list, and then they log in with your credentials. But if you had multi-factor authentication, it's not 100%, but it's a very high percentage chance that they're not going to get in if you had MFA. So I always push businesses to have MFA. Great email security. I mean, email continues to be the number one threat vector that bad actors are using to compromise machines, compromise credentials, get in for businesses. You have your EDR, your MDR, especially now making sure that you're leveraging XDR as well. We're so dispersed in data since COVID. Everybody's remote. Nobody's behind a brick and mortar firewall. So having the ability to leverage a system like XDR to bring all those logs together, all that data analytics to say, hey, there's a problem here. You need to go take a look at it because of all of these things that are going on. Those are definitely things that you need to be taking a look at as well.
Yeah, for goodness sake, at least turn on MFA, but especially all those other tips too. Now, listen, I could listen to you talk about, the cyber threat landscape and like what people should be doing literally all day. But I've heard that you're actually going to be giving a talk about this in the near future. Do you want to plug that?
Yeah, thanks so much. Little shameless plug here, but Logicon, it is our cybersecurity summit that we do annually. This is our 6th year running. It is in Columbus, Ohio, Tuesday, October 15th. We are so honored to be doing a session with CompTIA and My Computer Career as well. They're doing a boot camp for us on the 15th. If you would like to attend, please reach out. But then on the 16th and 17th, we will be doing nothing but educational content for 2 straight days about cybersecurity, business, mental health, AI, all kinds of things you can think about impacting businesses. We'll be doing that again, October 16th and 17th in Columbus, Ohio. Logicon. If you would like to join us, please reach out. Maggie, thanks for letting me give that shameless plug in there.
Yeah, and if you're seeing this video someday in the future, check out that year's LogicCon, and make time for it in your schedule. So even if you don't see this in time. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your knowledge with us, Joshua. And I hope I'll get to go to a LogicCon someday and we'll get to see each other in person.
Yeah, thanks so much, Maggie. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you.